Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will be explaining the degenerative changes of intervertebral disc, a key topic in radiology and spine imaging. But before going ahead, don't forget to hit subscribe button so you can stay updated with all my upcoming videos. So let's begin with the normal disc. So normal disc is composed of the nucleus pulposus, that is the central part, whereas the peripheral is annulus fibrosus. As we can see in this representative image, central is nucleus pulposus and the peripheral is annulus fibrosus. And the boundary of the disc is cranially and caudally by the vertebral endplates, as we can see in this dotted red line, and the peripherally by the outer edge of the vertebral epiphysis. As we can see, these red line are the vertebral epiphysis anteriorly and posteriorly. So these are the boundary of intervertebral disc. In imaging, intervertebral disc appears centrally bright in T2 and peripheral annulus fibrosus dark in T2 image, whereas the both appears dark in T1 image. So these are the normal appearance and height of the intervertebral disc. Now the degeneration of intervertebral disc. What is the degeneration? First is desiccation, the loss of signal intensity. 2. Fibrosis and narrowing of the disc space or loss of disc height. Diffuse bulge of the annulus beyond the disc space, that is the anterior and posterior, that is peripheral limit. Annular fissures, intradiscal gas, and last one is the modic change of the endplates. So these are the degenerative changes we can see in the intervertebral disc degeneration. Now the disc desiccation or degenerative changes. It is graded as the 5 types. So in type 1, nucleus pulposus appears homogeneous. As we can see in this image, nucleus pulposus is homogeneous. The demarcation between the nucleus pulposus and the annulus fibrosus, this dark part is the annulus fibrosus. So this is the demarcation. This appears clear, as we can see this in posterior also, and it is hyper intense. In T2 it is bright. So we can see this nucleus pulposus is bright and disc height is normal. So there is no any disc height reduction. In 2 it become inhomogeneous and horizontal white bands can be seen, as you can see in this. These are the horizontal white bands. Demarcation is still clear between the annulus fibrosus and the nucleus pulposus, and it is still hyperintense in T2, whereas disc height is normal. In grade 3 it is inhomogeneous. You can see in this image no clear demarcation between the nucleus pulposus and the annulus fibrosus, and signal intensity is also lost, so it become intermediate, and disc height may be decreased or it will remain normal. In type 4 it become inhomogeneous, the demarcation is completely lost and it become hypointense. As we can see in this image, it become hypointense and disc height is also reduced. We can compare this grade 4 with this grade 1, height is reduced. Inhomogeneous signal intensity of nucleus pulposus and demarcation is completely lost. Completely it is hypointense in T2 and disc space is almost completely collapsed. As we can see in this image, disc height is collapsed. So this is the grade 5. Now the disc bulge or disc herniation. So according to the recommendation of North American Spine Society, the American Society of Spine Radiology and the American Society of Neuroradiology, it is classified as the symmetrical, asymmetrical, broad-based and focal. So what is symmetrical? If it involving the whole circumference, and in asymmetrical more than 180 degree or more than 50% of the circumference of the disc. Broad-based is less than 180 degree or less than 50% of the disc. In focal, less than 90 degree or less than 25% circumference. Focal is again divided into the protrusion and extrusion. So if the herniated disc has the base larger than the dome, then it is called the protrusion, and if base is smaller than the dome, then it is called extrusion. And in protrusion, intact outer annulus fiber is seen, and in extrusion it may be completely torn. This is the representative image showing that this is the normal disc. It is divided into the 4 quadrants, that is 25% of circumference, and from the 90 degree the depending on this, if whole circumference is involved, it is called symmetrical disc bulb. If more than 180 degree is involved but not whole circumference, then it's called the asymmetric disc bulb. This is the broad based, less than 180 degree, and focal is less than 90 degree. Focal is again divided into the disc protrusion and extrusion. As we can see, this arrow denotes the, this horizontal arrow denotes the base, whereas this vertical denotes the dome. So if base is larger than the dome, then it is called protrusion, and this base is smaller than the dome. In this image, this is called the extrusion. Now in this disc simulating image, this is the normal disc. This is the diffuse disc bulb involving the whole disc circumference. This is the asymmetrical involving more than 180 degree but not whole circumference, and this is the focal. So this is the focal type. Now herniation can further be classified as the content or non-content. In content, the outer annulus fibrosus is intact, as we can see in this image, and posterior longitudinal ligament is also intact, whereas sometimes the annulus fibrosus is ruptured but posterior longitudinal ligament is intact. So this type is called content. Whereas in non-content, both annulus fibrosus and posterior longitudinal ligament is torn. So this is called non-content. So protrusion, asymmetric disc bulb protrusion, this protrusion comes in content type, whereas the disc extrusion could be content or non-content both type. Migration and sequestration comes in non-content type. Now the migration. What is migration? After disc herniation, there is migration of the content cranially or caudally. As we can see this representative image showing this yellow color is herniated content migrated cranially within the epidural space, and we can see in this image there is migration of herniated content cranially within the epidural space, whereas in this image, second image, we can see that the T2 weighted image showing disc herniation of L4 L5 with caudal migration of the herniated content. So this is the non-content type, and migration can lead to the spinal canal stenosis. I think this can also mimic the epidural mass. Now sequestration. Sequestration is the detachment of the herniated content from the parent disc. As we can see this representative image showing, this yellow part is the nucleus pulposus and this is the herniated content detached from the parent disc. So this is lodged in the epidural space away from the disc. It could be cranially or caudally, and this can mimic the epidural mass and it will lead to the knob compression and the spinal canal narrowing. In this image, we can see that this is the T2 weighted sagittal image showing herniated content from the L4, L5 level and migrated cranially and detached from the parent disc. So this will mimic the epidural mass. This is the axial image showing the migrated content. This is the level at vertebral body level. We can see that the bone herniated content noted in the epidural space causing the posterior displacement and compression of the thecal sac. In this image, we can see that there is a migrated content sequestered within the epidural space, and this is the post-contrast study showing the peripheral enhancement of the sequestered content. Next is the intravertebral disc herniation. This is also called the Smor's node. This occurs due to the weakening of the vertebral end plate, leading to the defect in the end plate and herniation of the disc content within the vertebra, adjacent vertebra. As we can see in this T2 weighted image, there is a small node in the inferior end plate and herniation of the content, disc content within the vertebra itself, and is surrounded by the high signal intensity. This is called the bone marrow edema. This is the bone marrow edema. This signifies that this is the acute Smor's node or intervertebral herniation. As we can see in this image, this is the T1 weighted image. We can see the multiple level Smor's node. This is the Smor's node. There is a small Smor's node. So these are the Smor's node or intervertebral herniation of the intervertebral disc. Now the annular fissure. What is annular fissure? Annular fissure is the separation between the annular fiber. As we can see in this image, there is a separation of the peripheral annulus fibrosus fibers. So herniation of the disc content within it. So this is called the annular fissure. In T2 weighted image, it appears bright due to the fluid and granulation tissue, and it shows enhancement in post-contrast study. As we can see in this image, this is the enhanced annular fissure. This is the T2 weighted high signal intensity annular fissure. Now the localization of the herniated disc, depending on the site, that is the central, subarticular, and previously it was used to call the paracentral. Now the foraminal and the extraforaminal. And in sagittal or coronal, we can see that depending on the level of herniated disc, that is the disc level, at the level of disc, suprapedicle level, in between the disc and the pedicle, and the pedicle level, that is the at the level of pedicle, and the infrapedicle level, that is the inferior aspect of the pedicle and the superior margin of the lower disc. So these are the level on the basis of sagittal and coronal image. Now the location of disc herniation and the nerve root compression. Central disc herniation, there is compression of the cauda equina nerve roots, whereas as the inforamimal or extraforaminal type, there is compression of inforamimal, there is dorsal ganglion compression, whereas in extraforaminal type, compression of the exiting nerve root distal to the dorsal ganglion can be seen. And in subarticular type, there is a compression of the traversing nerve root. So depending upon the location of disc herniation, the nerve roots are compressed accordingly. Now we can see in this image, this is the representative image, central zonal herniation. We can see in this image, this is the central disc herniation, and this will lead to the compression of the spinal canal with compression of the cauda equina nerve root. Now this is the paracentral. We can see that this representative image showing the narrowing of the lateral recess with compression of the traversing nerve root. In this image, we can see that this is the herniation of the disc in paracentral region or subarticular causing the compression. This is the nerve root, as we can compare here. This is the traversing nerve root at this level causing compression. Foraminal and extraforaminal type. In foraminal, there is compression of the dorsal ganglion nerve root, as we can see in this image. This is the foraminal disc herniation, and this is the, we can compare, this is the exiting nerve root. So compression of exiting nerve root at the foraminal level noted, and this cause the compression of the dorsal ganglion root, whereas in this extraforaminal type of herniation of intervertebral disc lead to the compression of the exiting nerve root. This arrow is showing that this is the exiting nerve root. As we can compare on the other side, this is the exiting nerve root compression distal to the dorsal ganglion. Now the intradiscal gas. Intradiscal gas cannot be appreciated in MRI. So for this, CT or X-ray should be considered or correlated with MRI image. We can see in this lumbar spine X-ray lateral view, where we can see these dark spots are the air within the intervertebral disc. In this CT, we can see that the degenerative changes of end plates, osteophyte, end plate sclerosis, and these thin linear dark areas are the air within the intervertebral disc. So these are the intradiscal gas. As we can compare in these images, this is the MRI image, and the same patient has this CT image. So we can see there is a gas within the intervertebral disc, whereas we cannot appreciate in MRI. So for this, CT is recommended. Now the modic change. So what is the modic change? MRI signal change in bone marrow in vertebral end plate is modic change. It is due to chronic mechanical stress on the vertebral end plates and lead to the microfracture. So we can see in this image, these are the representative, and the modic change is again 3 types, type 1, 2 and 3 types. This is the T1 image and T2 image. So both T1 and T2 image is required to classify the modic change depending on the type. In type 1, there is a bone marrow edema or inflammatory change noted, which appears low signal intensity in T1 and high signal intensity in T2. As we can see in this image also, there is low signal intensity, and at same level we can see there is an increased signal intensity. Whereas in type 2, there is a fatty replacement of the bone marrow, which appears bright in both T1 and T2. As we can see in this image also, there is a type 2 modic change, that is fatty replacement of the bone marrow. We can see this. These are the type 2. And in type 3, there is a sclerotic change of the end plate. You can see in this T1 and T2 in both it is dark. So this is type 3. So type 1 is acute phase where the edema marked, and this is the active degenerative phase, whereas the type 2 and type 3 is the chronic phase. So type 1 is mostly painful, whereas the type 2 is slightly painful, whereas the type 3 is not painful, but it can cause stiffness into the vertebra. Now this is the summary of disc. This is the normal disc, which is limited by the superiorly and inferiorly by the inflates, whereas the anteriorly and posteriorly by the vertebral epiphysis. And degenerative change, that we can see that the interdiscal gas, bulge of the disc, herniated disc, and the thinning, that is the reduced disc height, and again the osteophyte formation with collapsed disc space. So these are the different types of the disc degeneration. So this is all about the disc degeneration. So thank you for watching this video. If you have any query, please comment.